Oh my gosh. Welcome back, my friends. So this is actually the second time I've gone through and recorded this over. The first time there were a lot of little technical glitches. I'm hoping they don't come up when I tried to put it up to YouTube. But also, I just realized yesterday when I recorded it and then I watched it over again, I just looked so tired and sad. So today I went for a more festive shirt to see if that can cheer up the reading, because I really do love this book. We are going to be reading The House on East 88th Street by Bernard Weber. And if you have been looking at any of the other videos, you may remember Lyle the Crocodile had the same author. And I did mention that there was another Lyle the Crocodile book I was really looking forward to reading. And I ordered it and got the book. And this is the first Lyle the Crocodile book, but it is not the same Lyle the Crocodile book I was thinking of. So there's actually another Lyle the Crocodile book. There were quite a few that I didn't even know about. There's another one I've got coming, which I may also be able to share, so we can make it a Lyle the Crocodile trilogy, but we are reading them very much out of order. So this one is the very first book in which Lyle's introduced, and it is quite a fun one as well. So let's continue on. So this is the cover of the book. It is a much smaller physical book than the last one. So the pictures, I think the illustrations are not quite as nice. In fact, I think the illustrations actually improved as Bernard Weber continued through this series, but it's still a very lovely book. And the text, again, is not as heavy. There's not as much writing as in the last book, but it is still a bit small. So if you can't read along with me, I apologize for that. And here we go. Again, some of the very nice, lovely illustrations. Not a lot of color in this book. I mean, there is some lovely color, but the number of colors available is pretty small, and you can tell there's lots of green, which is why I've picked some of this green background for these slides. But this is a weekly reader children's club presents, and a Hoot and Mifflin. And then we've got the obligatory note, I have to say. This is for release and enjoyment for educational purposes within the Leschi Elementary School community. But I want to say thank you to the author-illustrator Bernard Weber and their estate for this book that was published in 1962, the Atlas edition for Hoot and Mifflin Company and Weekly Reader. And I very much say thank you for letting us enjoy this book within our community. Not for profit, but for educational purposes. And here we go. So we're inside the book now. And I'm going to start reading in just a moment, but off to the left was our little note that I just read, and here we go. It's nice brownstone. It's type of called a brownstone, and it says, "This is the house on East 88th Street. It is empty now, but it won't be for long. Strange sounds come from the house. Can you hear them? Listen. Swish, swash, splash, swoosh." And usually when you hear strange sounds coming from an empty house, it means ghosts. But that doesn't sound like ghost noises, so let's see what's going on here. It began one Sunday morning when the Citywide Storage and Moving Company truck pulled up to the house on East 88th Street and unloaded the belongings of Mr. and Mrs. Joseph F. Prim and their young son Joshua. It was a trying day for everyone. Mrs. Prim just couldn't decide where to put the piano, and Mr. Prim's favorite pipe was accidentally packed away in one of dozens of cartons laying about. So that's a lovely looking piano, but I must say, I adore that moving truck. The decorations on there make it look like one of those beautiful vans or trucks you see decorated from India that have all of the painting all over them. And that's not been my case when I've had to work with moving trucks. They usually just have a big U-Haul on them. Swish, swash, splash, swoosh. Loudly and clearly the sounds rumbled through the house. "It's only a little thunder," Mrs. Prim assured everyone. When a Citywide Storage and Moving man carried in their potted pistachio tree, everyone rejoiced. The truck was at last empty. The movers wished them well and hurried off for their next job of the day. It's a hard job. "Now I'm going to prepare our lunch," announced Mrs. Prim. "But first, I want to go upstairs and wash these grimy hands." Swish, swash, splash, swoosh. A puzzled Mrs. Prim stopped to listen. By and by, her ears directed her to the bathroom door. "What can that be?" she asked herself as she opened the door. What she saw made her slam it quickly. Mrs. Prim knew she was going to scream and just waited for it to happen. But she couldn't scream. She could scarcely even talk. The most Mrs. Prim was able to manage was a sharp, hoarse whisper of a voice which she used to call Mr. Prim. "Joseph," she said, "there's a crocodile in our bathtub." Mr. Prim looked into the bathroom. Ah! Okay, mixed feelings. I would be very upset if there was a crocodile in my bathtub. But if it had those big cutie eyes, I would also be wanting to find out more. Mr. Prim looks pretty unsure of himself. It's a lovely picture. The next moment found them flying off in different directions. "Help! Help!" Mrs. Prim cried as she struggled with a window stuck with fresh paint. "Operator! Operator!" Mr. Prim shouted on the telephone, and then he remembered that it was not yet connected. Joshua, who had heard everything, raced to the front door to be greeted there by an oddly dressed man who handed him a note. "This will explain everything about the crocodile," said the man, quietly but swiftly. And I gotta say, I recognize that hat from Lyle the Crocodile, and I must say it's a very stylish hat, as well as that moustache. Mr. Prim read the note. "Please be kind to my crocodile. He is the most gentle of creatures and would not do harm to a flea. He must have tender, loving care, for he is an artist and can perform many good tricks. Perhaps he will perform some for you. I shall return. Cordially, Hector P. Valenti, star of stage and screen. P.S. He will only eat Turkish caviar. P.P.S. His name is Lyle." "Turkish caviar indeed!" exclaimed Mrs. Prim. "Oh, to think that this could happen on East 88th Street. Whatever will we do with him?" Suddenly, before anyone could think of a worthy answer, there was Lyle. And just as a point of clarification, Turkish caviar is a food that I have not tried, but it is a type of seasoned fish eggs that are considered to be very, very fancy, and often only rich people eat them. So having a crocodile in your house that only eats caviar, I can imagine, would turn out to be a very expensive pet. And just as suddenly, he got a hold of a ball that had been lying among Joshua's belongings and began to balance it on his nose and roll it down the notches on his spine. Now he was walking on his front feet and taking flying leaps. Oh my goodness, what a crocodile. Now he was twirling Joshua's hoop, doing it so expertly that the Prims just had to clap their hands and laugh. Lyle bowed appreciatively. He had won his way into their hearts and into their new home. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to have to remember that if I have to win my way into folks' hearts, I should bring my hula hoop. That seems like it would be a good way to make yourself popular. "Every home should have a crocodile," said Mrs. Prim one day. "Lyle is one of the family now. He loves helping out with the chores. He won't allow anyone else to carry out old newspapers or take in the milk." Oh, and there's Lyle in their lovely sitting room. It looks like Mrs. Prim is having some tea, and Lyle is doing a little service. It kind of seems like Lyle is not a pet, but Lyle is a hardworking member of the family, or maybe someone who just works for the family. "He folds the towels, feeds the bird, and when he sets the table, there is always a surprise. I only had to show him once how to make a bed." So looking at that lovely table, I wonder if the surprise is the flowers. Oh, and there's a lot more color. There is some lovely red and yellow in this page. People everywhere stop to talk with him. They say that he is the nicest crocodile they have ever met. Lyle likes to play in the park. He always goes once around in the pony cart. Now, I haven't ever seen this in Seattle, but in some cities, in America and in other countries, they have pony carts, which are carts that are pulled by small horses often. And it is much like a wagon, and people ride in it and can go around. And some of them are fancy, and some of them are just kind of fun. But it's something kids and other people can do, and I see that Lyle is having a fun time in the pony cart. I'm not sure what's on top of that horse's heads. It look kind of like little alien antennas, but I'm guessing it's just some sort of decoration. That horse does not look as happy as Lyle, so I guess not all animals have that sort of access that Lyle does. And now he's learned to eat something besides Turkish caviar. Oh, Lyle's at the Italian ice stand. So 15 cents, you can tell this book was written quite a while ago. Italian ice, in my understanding, is something like a Hawaiian shave ice or a snow cone. But Lyle is very excited for that. Lyle is a good sport. Everyone wants to play on his side. Playing some volleyball. He's wonderful company. We take him everywhere. Just give him his Turkish caviar and his bed of warm water, and he's as happy as a bird. And this is something I hadn't thought about. Lyle wasn't just playing in the bathtub or having a bath. That seems to be actually where he sleeps. He sleeps in the warm water, which makes sense for a crocodile. But how do you share the bathroom? Like, if you need to take a bath, do you wait until Lyle's done? What happens there? I don't know, maybe because it seems like they're a pretty wealthy family, they have lots of bathrooms. One day, a brass band paraded past the house on East 88th Street. The Prim family rushed to the window to watch. They called for Lyle, but there was no answer. Wow, and a brass band, so it's got lots of horns. I see tubas, I see trumpets, those long ones, what are those? Trombones. I see some drums because I use those to keep the beat, keep the marching time going. But I don't see Lyle. Look, someone pointed. It's Lyle. He's in the parade. There was Lyle doing his specialty of somersaults, flying leaps, walking on his front feet, and taking bows, just as he did on the first day they laid eyes on him. The people watching cheered him on, while Lyle smiled back at them and blew kisses. Well, that's fun. Let's see, a photographer was on hand to take pictures. If you guys want to keep blowing kisses too, that's a nice part of this book. The next day, Lyle was famous. The telephone rang continually, and bundles of mail were dropped off by the door. One letter was from someone Lyle knew particularly well. Mr. Prim read it. Just a few words to say I shall return. Cordially, Hector P. Valente, star of stage and screen. P.S. Very soon. P.S. To fetch my crocodile. Uh-oh. Several days later, Mrs. Prim and Lyle were in the kitchen shelling peas when they heard a knocking at the door. It was Hector P. Valente, star of stage and screen. I have come for Lyle, announced Signor Valente. Oh no. There's innocent Lyle working hard in the kitchen, shelling peas, not even knowing what's at the door. You can't have Lyle, cried Mrs. Prim. He is very happy living here, and we love him dearly. Lyle must be returned to me, insisted Signor Valente. Was it not I who raised him from a young crocodile? Was it not I who taught him his bag of tricks? We have appeared together on stages across the world. But why did you leave him alone in a strange house? Asked Mrs. Prim. Because, answered Signor Valente, I could no longer afford to pay for his Turkish caviar. But now that Lyle is famous, we shall be very rich. Mrs. Prim was saddened, but she knew Lyle properly belonged to Signor Valente, and so she had to let him go. It was a tearful parting for everyone, and they had to focus on this sad, sad picture. And just as a side note, those are very sad, sad crocodile tears. But when people say crocodile tears, it usually means that someone is pretend crying, or crying when they don't really have feelings for it, crying to get something they want. But in this case, I think Lyle's crocodile tears are very, very real, as are the Prim's. Signor Valente had big plans for Lyle. They were traveling far and wide to stay in many hotels. Oh, Lyle, be careful on that cruise ship. They're not always very healthy. Looks like a lovely hotel, though. Look at that lamp. They stayed where sometimes the tubs were too big, and other times too small, or too crowded. Well, I asked earlier, so now there's my answer. I guess when you need to get in the tub, you just hop in with Lyle. There's Senor Valente sharing a tub with Lyle. Senor Valente looks fine. Lyle looks a little upset. Senor Valente did what he could to coax a smile from Lyle. He tried making funny faces at him. He stood on his head. He tickled his toes and told him uproarious stories that in happier days would have had Lyle doubled over with laughter. But Lyle could not laugh, nor could he make people laugh. He made them cry instead. One night in Paris, he made an entire audience cry. The manager of the theater was furious and ordered them off the stage. Oh my gosh. Lyle's heart is so broken that just seeing him perform makes everyone else sad. Meanwhile, at the house on East 88th Street, Mrs. Prim went about her work without her usual bright smile. Deep sighs could be heard coming from behind the newspaper Mr. Prim was reading. Every morning, Joshua anxiously awaited the arrival of the mailman in hope of receiving word from Lyle. One morning a letter did come. He knew the handwriting very well. Just a few words to say we shall return. Cordially, Hector P. Valente, formerly of stage and screen. P.S. I'm sick of crocodiles. P.P.S. And the tears of crocodiles. What does this mean? There's his note. He is sick of the tears of crocodiles. And goodness gracious, he has a very fancy script there, how he signed his name. Not too many days after, the Prims were delighted to find Hector P. Valente and Lyle at their front door. Here, take him back, said Senor Valente. He is no good. He will never make anyone laugh again. But Senor Valente was very much mistaken. Everyone laughed, and laughed, and laughed. And in the end, so did Senor Valente. Oh my goodness. I'm so glad the Prims are reunited with Lyle. So now, if you should happen to be walking past the house on East 88th Street, and if you should happen to hear sounds that go swish, wash, splash, whoosh, don't be surprised. It's only Lyle the Crocodile. And there is young crocodile Lyle flying a kite right out the window of the brownstone. Whoa! There's a real crocodile, and my face got much bigger. So, I wanted to say, because I didn't say it at the beginning, I miss you guys. I can't wait until I can read to you in person, but this is a nice way to share. I love you all very much. Please be kind to yourselves. Please be kind with those you live with. These are hard times, but we can do it together. We are less shy strong. And I'm considering what to read next. We've got a lot of fun books to choose from, so I will keep posting these if people keep listening to them. If you are listening, share them with your friends as well. Goodbye, my friends.